Here we go with the book. I served over 31 years active duty with the Marine Corps, saw combat in both Korea and Vietnam, and attended service schools from the basic school to the National War College. Yet only toward the end of my military career did I realize how little I really understood the art of war. Even as a PFC in Korea, after being medevaced along with most of my platoon after a fruitless frontal assault against superior North Korean forces, it seemed to me there had to be a better way to wage war. 17 years later, commanding a battalion at Quezon, I was resolved that none of my Marines would die for lack of superior combat power. But we were still relying on the concentration of superior firepower to win, essentially still practicing Grant's attrition warfare. And we were still doing frontal assaults. That opening right there is Colonel John C. Stutt, Marine Corps, obviously, and he just kind of explained his career path, serving in both Korea and Vietnam. And he goes on, the author of this book, so he's doing the foreword to this book, Maneuver Warfare. The author of this book has never served a day of active military duty. And he has never been shot at, although there are no doubt some senior officers would like to remedy that latter deficiency. So he's a little bit unpopular, the guy that wrote this book, with some people. Yet he demonstrates an amazing understanding of the art of war, as have only a small handful of military thinkers I have come across in my career. So he's talking about this guy, William S. Lind. And here he goes into some details on William S. Lind and how he came into contact with him. Back to the book. When I first heard Bill Lind speak, I must confess I resented a mere civilian expressing criticism of the way our beloved Corps did things. After all, he was not one of us. He had not shed blood with us in battle. He was not a brother. And I had strong suspicions that he would have difficulty passing the PFT, meaning the physical test. So this guy, Lind, not exactly a high-level athlete. But what he said made sense. For the first time, I was personally hearing someone advocate an approach to war that was based on intellectual innovation rather than sheer material superiority. Mission-type orders, surfaces and gaps, Schwerpunkt, instead of the rigid formulas and checklists that we normally associate with our training and doctrine. It was a stimulating experience. Through Lind's articulation, years of my own reading of military history began to make a lot more sense. But why all this from a civilian instead of a professional soldier? In fact, the entire movement for military reform is driven largely by civilian intellectuals, not military officers. One notable exception being retired Air Force Colonel John Boyd. When you think about it, this is not surprising. We have never institutionalized a system that encourages innovative ideas or criticism from subordinates. So there you go. It's the military. What do you say to your superior officer? I don't think that's a good plan. No, what they're told to do is support the plan. Proposing significant change is frequently viewed as criticism of superiors since they are responsible for the way things are, and borders on disloyalty if not insubordination. So it is not surprising that the movement for reform comes from outside the military establishment. And he goes on to say, B.H. Liddell Hart, which B.H. Liddell Hart was a guy that fought in World War I, a Brit that fought in World War I, battled the Somme. He got hit 3 times, eventually was gassed, set out of the line, and almost his entire battalion was wiped out. And this guy eventually wrote a book called Strategy, an Indirect Approach. And interesting, I pulled up one quote from him. Often, the longest way around is the shortest way there. This is the indirect approach. So anyways, back to the book here on what B.H. Liddell Hart said. B.L. Hart once remarked that the only thing harder than getting a new idea into the military mind is to get an old one out. In 1925, when he was expounding such hysterical theories as the indirect approach, the American General Service School's Review of Current Military Literature dismissed one of Liddell Hart's major works as negative value to the instructors at these schools. I expect Marine Corps schools to receive this publication with similar enthusiasm, but I cannot believe a professional military officer would not benefit by reading it. So that's, if you to catch the setup of this book, he's saying, look, this is different than what we've been taught. This is different. And by the way, this book, I'm checking the dates right now. This came out in 1985. So there has been progress in this direction since then. But at the time that this came out, it was viewed as almost insubordination to think this way. So let's jump into it right here with the theory of maneuver warfare.